This is Tech Vibe Radio, your front row seat to Pittsburgh's technology and innovation ecosystem. Tech Vibe is brought to you by Compunetics at compunetics.com, Chorus Call at choruscall.com, Highmark at highmark.com, Huntington Bank at huntington.com, Kindling at thekindlingagency.com, PNC Bank at pnc.com, and Savier at savier.com. Here are your hosts, Audrey Russo and Jonathan Kirsting of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, coming at you from the Huntington Bank studios.
Audrey, it's so much fun hanging out with you this particular Sunday morning. I always have a fun time hanging out with you, but this time our listeners might notice that Tech Vibe is just a little different today. You wonder what that might be. Any thoughts about what's going to make this show a little different today?
I don't know. It's just going to be you and me.
We have no guests today. Isn't that weird?
But we're the guests.
Yeah. Audrey, we've been doing this for 18 years now. Not that I'm counting.
It'll be 18.
It'll be 18. I'm just, whenever I get right within that realm, I like rounding up. You know how I am. I'm always rounding up. But I thought this would be a really cool idea to do this because we're putting together our latest issue of TEQ Magazine, publication of the Pittsburgh Tech Council, and you always anchor the magazine with a President's Note where we love picking your brain to bring the insights that you're seeing as leader of the Tech Council. When I look at your schedule and I see who you're meeting with on a daily basis, I could never keep up with you, but you're always meeting people. You're getting insights that I think regular people aren't just going to find, but you bring all this and you bring it together on these President's Note pieces. And this is a piece that you wrote for our next issue that had me really excited. And I'm like, Audrey just has to talk to us about this more. How much has everyone been talking about AI lately?
Overdone.
It's overdone at this point. We're all like tired of hearing about it. And then there's a lot of buzzwords around it and everything. But when you got thinking and you wrote this piece, it positioned how Pittsburgh can really take a leadership role in this beyond just the easy solutions of what AI we're all trivializing about now. The fact that, yes, we can type something in the cloud. There's deeper levels of this. And Pittsburgh is well positioned to really take a role in the deep tech side of this thing. So that's where I got really excited. And I wanted to discuss that with you today.
Okay.
And just to kick things off, the whole thing to me was just exciting because you pull out some of the key strengths that Pittsburgh has when it comes to this. But let's start with your definition of when you say deep tech in AI.
Anyone can look up the definition of deep tech, but I think the thing that's so interesting is that it takes patient investment. It takes a lot of R&D, research and development, and it takes people who have deep science expertise. So they could have deep science expertise, machine learning, natural language processing, artificial intelligence, big data sets, quantum computing, whatever it may be. But it is not something that, let's see, you and I have talked about for years about creating our own, hermetically sealed robot, right?
The robotic nacho arm. Oh my God, you brought up.
You have OCD and you want to make sure no one touches the cheese or the salsa after you placed your dip in it.
Sure.
They're fun things, and we see a lot of that stuff. But what I'm most curious about, and where I think we have the deepest opportunities around solving really hard problems that take a long time. So long-winded answer, but to me, the definition of deep tech is it takes patient investment. It's based on science that's filled with years of R&D. And it is technology that leverages the most cutting and advanced technologies that typically people like you and I don't have our hands on.
And so much of this is at the absolute research level in so many areas as well, too. It's literally like still in the labs, right?
It could be still in the labs. Yeah. It could still be in the labs, or it could it could be in what I like call post lab, where it's really outside of the lab, but it definitely hasn't been fully validated with customers or AKA patients.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes total sense.
It's really at the earliest stages, but the hypothesis is close to being accurate.
it's like in the ballpark, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I love that. And so basically then, if we're able to, as we have this type of research and these ideas that they're in the ballpark, the idea of growing them is where it gets really tricky, right? I think about how many different ways a tech company can fail, and it's scary out there. And so being able to take these very nascent technologies and bring them to scale requires quite the lift. And it's not something that just the tech council can do, even though we want to play a massive role in that, of course, but it really requires a shift across our whole ecosystem in order to embrace this technology. As you mentioned earlier, having to have investors that can actually put in a long timeline, knowing it's going to take 10 or 15 years to make something. Tell me more about your thoughts on that.
It's interesting. I think there's two things that are happening now.
Yeah.
One is like overnight, people have these unicorn valuations overnight, it seems like.
Yeah.
Compared to even what we used to think as overnight success, like Facebook and Apple, et cetera. We now have the adoption of AI has occurred in the equivalent of nanoseconds. So since it happened so fast, right, there are a lot of investors who are looking to bet on the short game. And we're seeing that. There's a countless number of companies that within a year ago, they didn't have a valuation of over $1 billion, but now they do because the adoption of AI is embedded in everything. It's almost embedded in everything. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, I think back to your question is that we are in a period of time where things are moving at nanosecond speed and everyone thinks that they can be in the game. But the opportunity that Pittsburgh has is the deep science and deep knowledge of trying to solve like really hard problems. So that to me is what the exciting, back to your original question, that to me is the exciting piece that we have here because we have people who have that kind of deep expertise. But there is a little bit of hype in terms of us saying we're the center of the AI universe. So many people, so many locations are saying that. It's almost like saying Intel inside, right? It's AI inside. AI has been inside. Even when we had a BlackBerry, we had artificial intelligence that was sitting in there that was doing some recognition, or a Palm Pilot, or whatever the technologies were in our hands at that time, 20 years ago. There was still technology that was accumulating information and then accumulating that information to allow for some predictability. We see that even with working on our laptops back then. You could see like, how did they know I was going to type an S after WA? It's just the accumulation and the amassing of that.
So much of that. I was looking through some of our archives of some of the Technology Council's magazine when we were in technology back in the mid 90s. And there was all sorts of talks about artificial intelligence and the beginnings of research around that. And that was 35, 40 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Right?
And people thought they were crazy. They were working on autonomy back then, like an autonomous truck. You people are crazy. Meanwhile, in the bowels of Carnegie Mellon, even then, there were people who were researching and believing that this was going to occur. The hype is that all of a sudden, what's happened is it's just Moore's law on steroids. And it being on steroids, I would not have believed that a year ago, everyone would have had this sort of ubiquitous kind of technology in our hand this quickly.
And that's just a year ago. That's what's so crazy. You're talking like a year ago. I think about a year from now, it seems like a blink, and it's going to be even different. This is a perfect place for us to pause real fast, Audrey. We're going to take a quick break. I'm just fascinated. I'm so happy we're having this conversation because I love us being able to go deep on some of these topics and get our listeners out there really excited for the possibilities that are here in Pittsburgh. And these are not just possibilities. These are things that are anchored in things that are actually happening now. So we can actually grow them and nurture them and so forth. But we're taking a quick break. We're coming right back. As I always say, Audrey, go to pghtech.org. Check out all the ways we love helping tech companies succeed. This is Jonathan Kirsting.
And this is Audrey Russo.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
A strong work culture is the invisible force that binds employees to each other, to the company, and to their work. It's linked to better business outcomes, happier employees, and increased retention.
How we work and where we work continue to evolve in almost every way, yet our human need for connection and purpose remains. Help your employees connect and thrive by evolving your culture to support your team, regardless of how or where they work. So discover how the Kindling Culture Agency can transform your company's culture at sparksomething.big.com. That's the Kindling Culture Agency at sparksomething.big.com.
Compunetics is the leading developer of unified voice, video, and data collaboration and conferencing applications for the service provider, government, and unique workflow applications. The Summit Olympus and Evergreen platforms, driven by their encrypted user interfaces, enable powerful and secure collaboration. Combined with world-class support and innovative professional services, Compunetics delivers the right solution every time. Learn more at compunetics.com. Your dial is set to Tech Vibe Radio, brought to you by Compunetics, Chorus Call, Highmark, Huntington Bank, Kindling, PNC Bank, and Xavier. Here are your hosts, Audrey Russo and Jonathan Kirsting of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, coming at you from the Huntington Bank studios.
Audrey, we are back. It is Sunday morning. I am loving our conversation. In case you just joined us, this is Jonathan Kirsting, hanging out with my boss, our CEO, and my co-host, Audrey Russo here. And we are picking Audrey's brain today around AI and really where Pittsburgh's strengths are in AI. You know, I think some of us are almost tired of talking about AI, but when Audrey wrote her last president's note, I said, Audrey, let's put you on the air and talk about this because I was really impressed. And if you want to read this president's note, go to pghtech.org, click the down tab under our media for TEQ. You'll find it right there. But you brought up some amazing points as to how Pittsburgh is positioned to lead the way on the real deep tech sides of things around AI, transformative stuff. Some talent. This is obviously, we could probably do 25 shows just talking about what this means for talent
People,
and so
right.
forth. But maybe just talking about how the type of talent that's going to be required to do some of these lifts along
Well,
the
listen,
way.
it's an interesting thing in terms
Yeah.
of people go to college, right? They go to universities, they go to community colleges, and probably less so community colleges, because in community colleges, sometimes you can find a vocational match
Yeah.
quicker than when you go to a four-year college. What I mean is you go to a four-year college and you say, oh, I want to be a mechanical engineer. I want to be a computer scientist. You can pick an assortment of things, but you don't necessarily really know what you're going to do when you come out. But let's say you do. Let's say you say, I want to be a computer scientist or I want to be a mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's in 4 years. If you think that in 1 year, the world has changed with the adoption of artificial intelligence, and then you go to school, you're in school for 4 years, right? The world completely changes 4 times.
Yeah.
Through the time that you're through your university or college experience. And so the only way that you really can be quote unquote marketable and understand what your trajectory is post college is to make sure that you're doing internships at least twice a year.
Oh my God, twice a year. Gee.
But think about that. Doing twice
no,
a year,
it's
so you're
true.
staying apprised because it's
Right.
moving that fast.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a company and I see someone who's had 6 to 8 internships and they're working across all these different companies and they went to school, I might say, wow, that's amazing. I can see that person's going to have enough agility and nimbleness and understand what's happening across the different market sectors. They have that kind of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone goes to school and for 4 years and maybe they have one internship, what did that really do for them in terms of keeping connected into what's happening in industry?
Point. I'm so
So,
glad I'm not at school.
and then on top of that, people go to universities for an array of reasons. Is it to get a job? Is it to expand their horizons? Is it for them to experiment? and think about the things that they want to be exposed to because they were never exposed to that. There's a myriad of things. So the world changes rapidly. Now take the flip side. We're inside a company and the world is changing rapidly every single year, new technology, new solutions. You see that artificial intelligence is starting to eliminate the need for certain technology, the need for repetitive tasks, autonomy being built in. And you're seeing people who are running these companies saying, wow, having less people very often allows me to ensure that I incur less problems, less liability, and maybe I build a really meaningful, high performing teams and I get bigger margins. Let's just face it, this is part of the capitalist market. The more people that you have and the more fixed labor that you have, it impacts your fixed costs. And people are in business, even though people can be in business for really good reasons. There's B Corps. There's people who have huge focus on social impact. And there are people like me who say work gives your life meaning. So it doesn't matter whether you're in a social impact company or you're doing something to aid to the goodness of some product. So it's moving so fast that when you come out of college and you come out of school, what we're seeing is that very often what I want for my company isn't necessarily being quote unquote produced. If you just think of the universities in an assembly line, which sounds a little crude, and I don't mean it to be crude, but I'm just mean it in terms of process. Just in terms of process. So here we are. We have a company, and then we're saying, wait a second, is it worthwhile for me to hire Jonathan Kirsting, who just spent 4 years at the University of Pitt, did a minor in poetry and a master and a major in computer science? And he worked at Burger King because he needed to pay his bills.
I'm well-rounded, Audrey. I'm well-rounded.
But he needed to pay his bills. He worked at a hardware store because he needed to pay for school. So does Jonathan miss out on the opportunities for him to have a career that might be more attractive? Then on top of that is the skill. If you start to automate these skills and you start to leverage AI, you're going to ask yourself at least 10 times, do I need to hire a person for that? Because what I really need is I need someone with sophisticated skills that can extract information out of data and can leverage autonomy, and they have deeper understanding of the machinations and the automation and the structure. So I'd rather have someone keep my most experienced people and not necessarily hire some of those people who are newer. And I don't mean to sound fatalistic. I don't mean to sound that. I'm saying we see it happening already, even inside the Tech Council, in terms of the relationships that we have with industry. We see that already. And so the need for automation and the intrigue in automation, it's not just a shining star for the moment. It's something it's crucial to be a differentiator in your business. So what does that do for the human condition? And what does that do for people? Now, we could do a whole other piece, another interview where I'm very interested in the humanities and I'm interested in the arts, because I think this is an opportunity for a real embracing of whole interdisciplinary opportunities that we just haven't paid attention to.
This opens my eyes in so many ways. I feel like we're literally witnessing like history in the making. It's one of these transformational moments in human history where things really change quickly and in big ways that forces core reinventions of so many systems. But I feel like in order to discuss this, my goodness, we can burn through 22 minutes very quickly.
I hope our listeners are intrigued. I hope I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I'm a pragmatist. And I do see all the different intersections across so many different industries and what they're really grappling with. And that's the beauty of the work that we do, that we get a chance to really see that, feel it, and figure out ways to support it, and also figure out some ways to get ahead of it. So as a region, we're really understanding how to leverage those assets and what does it mean to attract companies here and build companies here.
100%. So I'm going to set the rules now, Audrey. I think that like once a quarter, we need to have an update with you about what you're seeing out there and bring us some of the insights back, because so much of this, I don't know. I just feel like we got to have these conversations, and the more we have them, the better. And so you're on the hot seat. I'm calling you back. It's going to happen.
Thank you.
And everyone, go to pghtech.org. We love helping tech companies succeed. Thank you for spending your Sunday morning with us. This has been Jonathan Kirsting.
And this is Audrey Russo.
Audrey, I will see you tomorrow morning at work.
Thanks for geeking out with us on Tech Vibe Radio. Tune in next Sunday for more tech and innovation stories right here from Pittsburgh. Tech Vibe is brought to you by Compunetics at compunetics.com, Chorus Call at choruscall.com, Highmark at highmark.com, Huntington Bank at huntington.com, Kindling at thekindlingagency.com, PNC Bank at pnc.com, and Savier at savier.com. And we're always coming at you from the Huntington Bank studio.